Hi there, I'm Elizabeth from Nappies in Brisbane, and today I just wanted to touch on a subject that, look, I've been avoiding for a lot of years, but a customer came in this week and I think it's probably about time that this is something that we had a chat about. And that is, what is the difference between a $30 nappy and a $7 nappy? Now, I'm not in the business of telling people what they should and shouldn't buy, and I'm not in the business of deciding for you what your budget is. And so this little video is not going to be about the ethical choice of picking between a $30 and a $7 nappy, but really it's about pointing out to you guys what the fundamental differences are between the two. And before we get too much further, it's probably worth noting that whenever we raise this kind of subject as an industry, we get a whole lot of backlash from people who say, well, yeah, I bought a $30 nappy or a $35 nappy and it was still made in China, so what's the difference? And I just want to draw the parallel that if you were to buy pretty much any product that's made in China, there's the good quality product and then there's a lesser quality product, and the price actually reflects the two. It generally will reflect the components that it's made of, the fabrics, the manufacturing process, whether the pattern has been copied off somebody else or developed personally by a particular brand or company. And exactly the same is the case with cloth nappies. Now, in the case of this particular customer, she'd come into us and she'd bought a really well-known brand of nappy. It has quite a distinctive range of prints, and she had taken it away, tried it, loved it, and then decided that she was going to have a look online to see if she could find a better price. Fair call. And she came across exactly the same print, but the nappies were about a fifth of the price of what she had paid coming into us. Now, it's not because our prices were greatly inflated, because our prices are exactly what the recommended retail price is, but it was that she was actually buying a product that wasn't what was being promoted and advertised. She made the assumption that because it was the same print, therefore it was going to be the same nappy. And I think that's a really common trap that people fall into, is when you look online and when you're shopping online, things look the same, and that is a really difficult thing as a consumer to spot the differences. Even the differences that I'm going to show you today are not apparent when you start buying nappies online. But it really is more often than not reflected in the price. So if you want to buy a $7 nappy, that's fine, all power to you. Plenty of people choose to buy really inexpensive nappies, particularly if they're just starting out and they want to try a few things. What I really strongly encourage is that if you buy a really inexpensive nappy and it doesn't work for you, it is not necessarily cloth nappies that don't work. It's more often than not going to be that that particular brand of nappies isn't working for you. So I do try and encourage people that if you want to start in front of the 8 ball, start with something that is a tried and tested brand, and we test all of our brands ourselves for 3 months, so we know exactly how they work. They're not necessarily going to work for you specifically, but they do actually work for a greater population. Okay, so what's the difference between the two? The little printed one here is the $7 nappy, which I didn't actually even order myself. I happened to find it at my local op shop still in its plastic packaging, and this one here is a $30 odd nappy. I've picked both of them are pocket nappies, so we're sort of comparing apples with apples. So let's just start off by comparing the outside shell. So what you would generally find with a less expensive nappy is, unfortunately, you really more often than not will find that they've got the most awesome prints, which is a bit of a bitch because you get awesome prints but quite often in a substandard or a lower, lesser quality waterproof fabric. Not always the case, but generally that is the case. So you generally find when you have a look at this nappy that it looks like a pocket nappy. It looks exactly the same as the other one. You can, when you feel it, and obviously we don't have feel-o-vision, but when you feel it, you can actually feel that the suede cloth on the inside feels quite plasticky, and I've taken this out of its plastic a couple of times, but I can still smell this really, really strong aroma of chemicals and formaldehydes, and it's pretty gross. Even my kids commented on how disgusting it smelt when I took it out the other day. So the plastic on the PUL on the inside is quite thin, and it's really, really stretchy. And now that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm a mum of kids who have enormous bums and thighs, and I loved stretchy PUL because it actually got around their bottoms and was really trim. But what you can actually find is over time that PUL starts to delaminate can delaminate very, very quickly. So that stretch, you know, it's great, but you get to the point where sometimes it's a bit too stretchy. So the PUL in our other nappy, the suede cloth feels much thinner and much thicker and less plasticky. On the inside, the PUL it's still stretchy, but it's not actually laminated onto the fabric. Now, it's actually not unusual to find that the PUL is laminated onto the fabric, but you usually find it doesn't have quite so much stretch and give if it is a good quality PUL. In terms of the shells, you can also see again if you compare the two together, if you hold them up, you can see that the less expensive one, which is this one over here, is much, much longer. Now, it actually really isn't longer, because when you stretch this one out, it reaches to be about the same point. In fact, the orange one reaches to be longer, so you're going to get more growth out of it. What you find with this one is that it's actually got less stretch in the elastic in the legs. So you can see here, it really hardly stretches at all. And that's a really big thing, really important thing, particularly if you're getting a one-size-fits-most nappy. So if you were to buy this thinking, oh, I'm going to fit this on my newborn, you snap it at the front, you would more often than not find that those legs were still really, really gapey and really big on a newborn. This one here, you can immediately see how much gathering there is in the leg elastic. It's still about the same amount. In fact, I think this one is slightly more, but there's lots and lots of give and lots of stretch. So on a newborn, you're going to be able to pull this up nice and snug and tight and get a lovely tight fit around the legs, which is going to stop them from leaking. So lots and lots of elastic. While we're still talking about elastic, it's worth comparing, just taking the stuffing out and comparing, we'll talk about absorbency in a minute, but just comparing the elastics that are used. Now this one's a bit tricky because it's actually been stitched into a little channel along the side, and it's also tricky to see it on the camera, but with the elastic here, I'm going to try and hold it up really, you can just see there's a little fluffy tuft there. So that is all the entirety of the elastic, all bar maybe 2 millimeters that are stitched into the shell. So it's a really, really thin elastic, and you actually find that the thinner the elastic, the less seal you get on the legs. When we take this one here, this one's easy to see because it's stitched on the outside, which also makes replacing the elastics in your nappy really easy. This one here is about double, if you can see that, the elastic just there. It's about double the size of what this less expensive one was. This is also a swimwear elastic. Not all brands do a swimwear elastic, but this one does, which means it's less likely to perish. And it hasn't already been stretched really tight, which means you're not putting pressure constantly on the elastic. It's stitched in at its loosest. Whereas with this one, it's actually stitched in, it's already been a little bit stretched, so it's constantly having tension on it, which means over time and reasonably quickly that elastic starts to just degrade and it starts to loosen right off. So the elastics are a really important thing and a big difference. Okay, so absorbency, and that is really what we find is the biggest issue. So I jumped online this morning and I just did a kind of bit of quick research, and the company that's selling, I don't know if it's this specific brand, but a similar nappy to this was advertising that it was a one-size-fits-most nappy that would work from birth to toilet training, and it came with 2 thirsty absorbent inserts. Now this is the insert that it came with, which is a microfiber terry insert. There's not two, there was only one, and as I said, it was in the plastic packaging, all sealed up, so no one's pinched one out of there. It's got 3 layers of fabric, so there's these 2 and then there's one I can feel kind of tucked inside there. I would struggle to advise anybody to even use this as a booster overnight, let alone a nappy that's going to do the sole entirety of absorbing any child's full bladder. It's really floppy. It doesn't have a great deal of body about it, which means as soon as you stuff it into the pocket nappy, it's all going to get kind of bunched up, which means that you tend to find it will leak through the legs. When your child does a wee, it's going to leak through the legs. The fact that it's microfiber means it's going to dry really fast, but microfiber by its very nature is not particularly absorbent. And so I would think that the average person would maybe get an hour at the absolute most out of this insert. It's certainly not going to give you the 3 hours that we would be aiming for in a nappy. In our alternative brand, this is the insert that you get. Now, pocket nappies come with all sorts of different inserts. Sometimes they are just one panel, sometimes they're multiple layers, sometimes they fold into 3. Doesn't really matter. This is a bamboo insert. It sizes, so you can change, when you change the size of your pocket nappy, you can easily change how big or small your insert is. It has 6 layers of fabric, and someone's bound to email me and say, I use that brand and I only get 2 hours, but on average you would get about 3 hours out of this brand of absorbency. It holds its shape. It's contoured, so it's going to fit nice and neatly inside your pocket. Not all of them are like that, but this particular brand is. And it's going to be nice and easy to stuff into your pocket. So realistically, a lot of people will buy these kind of inexpensive pocket nappies and then they upgrade their absorbency, and you know, that works fine too. But what I just like people to be aware of is that if you buy a nappy and it comes with just one of these, you're really going to need to boost it right up straight away. Add extra absorbency or get rid of that and buy yourself some decent insert sets. By the time you've done that, you really haven't saved that much money in the long run. And the absorbency is what's going to do all the hard work for you. There's just another thing worth noting, and that is that there are a lot of brands out on the market that are selling $7 nappies, so nappies like this, which are worth about $7, for the $20 mark. And that's when I feel really frustrated and really disappointed for people, because they get nappies that really $20 is a fairly significant investment, and for an extra $10, so less than the price of a great quality insert, they could have actually bought a brand that is going to work for them pretty much straight up. So this is not about telling you what you can and can't buy. It's not about the ethics of where you buy your nappies from. It's really just pointing out step by step what the differences are between the nappies, so the things to look for. You can't pick a cheap nappy alone on the print, and a lot of people have tried to use that as the one defining factor, and what ends up happening is lots of really legitimate, great quality nappies get bundled up in the same barrel as the ones that are quite frankly pretty crap. That being said, the prints are something to go by. So if you can see a print that's in a really, and it's quite often American brands, but a really well-known print that you've seen on a mainstream brand, and you see it carried over into a less expensive brand, you can be pretty sure that it's going to be a knockoff and probably not going to be as good a quality as you want to have a really successful nappying journey with that particular nappy. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of insight into what the difference is between a $7 nappy and a $30 nappy. It's worth keeping in mind that there are ways of doing cloth nappies that you don't have to go down the road of being frustrated with a $7 nappy. We're more than happy to help you out with that if you want to email us or shoot us a message through our website. If you've got any questions, feel free to email us at info@nestnappies.com.au. We look forward to seeing you in the next video.